Hello and welcome to Generally Speaking. Let's get this show on the road. The European Union is asking Ukraine to open up Russian gas pipelines. Imagine that. Imagine that. Russia, the enemy, kill Russia, do anything to strangle them to death. Well, things are getting a little tight here. I think we need some Russian oil. Yes, we'll have to pay the money. Yes, they'll benefit from it, but we need that oil. And this after the United States told India, we're not going to punish anybody anymore, including you, or actually you especially, particularly. If you want to buy Russian oil, go right ahead, because, all America's allies are needing some oil. India will resell the oil to all the people that our allies, so they can get the oil. So here you go. Russia is coming into a windfall. Our enemy, we hate them, kill them, do anything to strangle them. But now they're going to get to sell us oil. It's what you call realpolitik. I like that word, realpolitik. When the stuff hits the fan, and so that's how that goes. All right, we got this story about a senator, U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. He is proposing that there should be no federal taxes on income under 46,000. What? Who's saying this? Oh, the commies taking over? Is this AI? No federal tax income, and for the reduced federal tax income for the middle class. Oh my God, I just don't believe this is happening. He said, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? This is what the Republicans always say. How are we going to pay for it? Even though they can throw billions of dollars into these war efforts, they can say, I think Israel needs another 20 billion. Let's just send it over there. Argentina, they need 20 billion. Let's just send it over there. Nobody says, where's the money going to come from then? No. But where's it going to come from? A millionaire tax. Oh my gosh, a millionaire tax that would raise 1.5 trillion in 10 years. Wow. In 10 years. Why do they say this? I've heard this so many times, how it's going to be impacted over the 10 years. 10 years is a dumb thing to talk about. We've got presidents and senators and everybody that changes, every couple of years. I mean, senators can stay for long, but the president, the main administration, every 4 years it changes. There's no guarantees there's going to be a 10 years down the road. So, just say every year. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 and multiply and say, okay, at 10 years it will be, every 10 years, I don't know. But at any rate, this proposal, it's amazing. And he's got 15 fellow Democrats willing to sign on. You say Democrats, Republicans, they're the same thing. No, they're not. Listen, there's plenty of crummy Democrats. They're almost like, Republicans. They're corporate shills. They're AIPAC shills. And, Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. But at least we got some who are principled and are doing something good for the little guy. You won't see any Republicans doing that. No. So Democrats are not the same as Republicans. All right. So if you're liking this so far, please like, subscribe, and hit the notify bell. All right. We got another crazy politician, Governor Ferguson of Washington State. He just signed a millionaire tax, but he didn't sign it right away. No. He said, listen, fellas and ladies, we need to amend this first, and then I'll sign it. Oh, what kind of an amendment? He says, I want it to specify that certain of the funds be directed towards affordability. Affordability is the word they're throwing around these days. So what's it mean? What's it mean, affordability? Well, in this case, the specifics are expanding eligibility for the working families tax credit. Okay, you get a tax credit at the end of the year if your family is working. How about removing the sales tax on essential items like diapers and hygiene? Everybody needs diapers. Well, I mean, if you got babies or if you've got senile grandparents or great grandparents, I'm getting there. I might need some soon. And funding free school meals. Well, how radical, how commie. This is going to the right. And childcare, universal childcare, and early learning programs. Oh my goodness, what's this country coming to? I'm moving. I'm going to go someplace more right-wing than the U.S., except I can't even imagine where there's a place. Oh, maybe Hungary. I hear they're pretty good into that right-wing stuff. All right, so imagine these guys doing such things. It makes me heart feel good. All right, Judge Cannon that sleazy, slimy judge in Florida. She was slapped with a suit to release Volume 2 of Jack Smith's studies, investigations into Trump's two illegal activities, one keeping documents at Mar-a-Lago, and the other one messing with the elections, 2020 elections, with the false electors, right. So Judge Cannon had said, listen, we can't ever release this information, and I said so. You can't release it. And this girl has nothing to do with it. This is in Judge Chutkan's court up in D.C. or New York, wherever Judge Chutkan is. And she just, decided, oh, well, listen, I'm going to speak up and say that these can't be released. I don't know law, at all. But I don't understand how a judge in some jurisdiction over here gets to say something about materials that, were under someone else's purview over there. It's just crazy. And then that someone can just say, can't see it. Now, I mean, that's bad enough that you would never see it. But, the Trump administration was looking to push that, not just not see it. How about destroy it? We need to destroy it. That's the way that should go. That should just be not existing anymore. So nobody, now, thank goodness it hasn't come to that. I think there were immediately some protests, some what do you call them, suits filed saying no, hey, judges, make sure you stop this. And saying something has to be done quickly because nothing happens quickly. You put an emergency request before a judge and we'll get to it next month. It's on the docket, unless it's Donald Trump asking the Supreme Court to rule on something tomorrow, and ding, they do it, bang, right away. Yep, right up front. So, at any rate, Judge Cannon was slapped with a suit, saying that she can't just say they can't be released, and she can't interfere anymore. She can't keep sticking her nose into this business. All right, the U.S. is closing the embassy in Saudi Arabia for security reasons because they're being bombed. He has a little security questions there. Not sure that the embassy will be there tomorrow, just a smoking pile of rubble. Kansas revokes trans people's licenses. You go driving around, suddenly your license is no good. Why? Because you were born a guy and you became a girl. And Kansas don't like that. They don't like that. You can't do that. So until you got to get a new license that says what your birth sex is, and so you got to go through all that hassle. And I suppose in the end, like, who cares, right? I mean, I would care if I was that person. I want to be all totally the kind of identity that I have. And I can understand that. And really, you say, who knows? Maybe it would come an issue somewhere. Any rate, but that's Kansas for you. Another backwards place, sort of like Texas and Louisiana. We have some really backward places in here. They're called red states, and they've got usually the worst performance of all metrics that you can think of. Hospitals, education, employment, pay, general pay, always at the bottom. They're those wonderful red states. ICE detention centers are refusing legislative inspection. Legislature, I was reading a story about this one group of people from one state, can't remember what it was. I think it was New Hampshire. But they went down there to look at the facility because they've been hearing horror stories left and right about them. And the doors were blocked. You got the big, meaty, buff armed guys, with 20 machine guns hanging off their belts. No, you can't come in. Now they're legally entitled to go in. That's like their job, inspecting things. And but they can't. Why? Because you got these armed guys in front of you. This is what we need to change some, arrangements, especially with armed forces. The Supreme Court, they can say things. Let's just say the regular courts, the courts. They can say you have to do something, and meanwhile they don't have any way to make you do it. They can just look at you, scowly face, say you have to do this, or I'll hold you in contempt. All right, so I'm in contempt. I'm still not doing it. Ha, ha, ha. That's why they need their own armed services. And so does the Congress. They need their own services. If Congress would have showed up with some of their own, armed fellows, then, well, we would have seen what would have happened then, right? So, yeah. I think they need it. We need a lot of changes. One thing about Trump, as horrible as he was, he has certainly pointed out a whole hell of a lot of weaknesses that our system has, since we never really expected a maniac like that to be in the office. All right, U.S. is seeking a ceasefire talks with Iran. They, been going through channels, Russia, China, Oman, in the Middle East. Can you go talk to them and see if they will stop and, let's have a ceasefire. Let's have some talks. Well, Iran's not having any of it. The last two times Iran agreed to talks, to ceasefire talks, they got stabbed in the back. While they were in the middle of those talks, bombs started falling on their heads. So, I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't talk. They're willing to, reduce hostilities. But now this is under a whole different kind of, what we are demanding. For one, it wouldn't be a ceasefire. It would be like a stop altogether. And you can't arm, who knows, extreme things. What do you do when you want to make sure that you can't have Israel or the U.S. suddenly bombing you again? Well, right now their answer is, I'm not going to, think about what I would ask. I'm just going to blow the heck out of you. And Israel is losing left and right. The reporting from Israel is so seriously banned. If you get caught reporting anything, you get thrown in jail, you get disappeared. And but that place, you see photos, they're coming out, it's starting to look like Gaza. There are thousands being killed there. They say, we lost 100, we lost 2. You can't trust how many people died when Israel's reporting about their own citizens, or when the U.S. reports. There's so many stories about, the U.S. lies left and right. They're no different from anybody else. So let's get out of there and go to the race for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat in Georgia. There are like 17 people running there, and if you have to get 50% in order to be locked in. If you don't, then there has to be a runoff. So who's at the top of the heap that won, that got the most? A Democrat in red Georgia. A Democrat got that 50%. Now he has to still go on a runoff, but he's the top reporter. And this goes with the trend that's been happening ever since Trump got into office, that wherever there's a conflict between a contest between Dems and Republicans, the Dems have flipped 27 from Republican to Democrat, and the GOP, how many have they managed to flip? 0. Goose egg. Nada. So we're seeing a trend here. Dems are winning left and right. I don't know what accounts for it. Everybody can say it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. And that's all you can do is imagine. Because unless you actually ask, 10 million people, why did you do what you did? Then you're just guessing. You're just guessing for the most part. All right. Dems are still holding the line on DHS funding. Department of Homeland Security funding is being held up right now because the Department of Homeland Security is going wacko. They're going nuts. They're arresting people left and right, putting them in these horrible detention centers, and they're not giving them any habeas corpus, any rights refused. They take them from whatever city they're in and ship them off to Texas right away and deny them any access to lawyers, friends, family. They take all their possessions. You never see your wallet, your phone again. And, it's maniacal. It's just crazy. So the Dems, not the Republicans, see, they're different. Not completely, right? Like I said, a lot of crummy Dems. But the Dems want to put a little restraint. What kind of restraint? Well, not a whole lot of restraint. They want better training. Okay, so, is that really going to make a difference? You got trained different, but you go out there and you do the same thing anyway. And they shouldn't be able to wear masks. All right, so we'll be able to ID these buggers, later on. If Trump doesn't pardon them all in the first place, and it still won't stop them from doing what they're doing. Even if, okay, maybe we can get them later, we still got suffered with the consequences. All right, Trump's his top priority right now, he's telling Congress, is the SAVE Act, which is a bunch of restrictions on things you can do, voting, like mail-in voting, same-day registration, how many drop box locations, because apparently all these things favor Democrats. I can't imagine why. What is different about a Democrat than a Republican as far as human body flesh goes? Why would Democrats be more likely to mail in? I don't know. That's what they say, so I guess that's what it is. Nobody's arguing the point. So anyway, there we go. Israel is being killed, being blown to pieces, but they're still carrying on their war campaign. In fact, they're marching into Lebanon, or trying. The Hezbollah is pushing them back and punching them in the face big time. Funny thing about Hezbollah, right? You think, okay, so that's Lebanon fighting back, but it's not Lebanon fighting back. It's Hezbollah fighting back, because Lebanon is its government. They don't like Hezbollah. Hezbollah, who's protecting them, who's keeping them from being bombed by Israel. Politics. It's just amazing. I wonder how that's going to turn out in the end, where Hezbollah finally, becomes the government. But at any rate, there you go. There's all the news. I hope you did like, subscribe, and notify. I hope you look for Generally Speaking again, and take care.